quantum leaders the reformer, consciousness as architect, not bystander. The reformer's natural style, collaborative, purposeful, and future-improving, is grounded in a desire to elevate the systems they interact with. But this quantum principle reorients their role completely. They are not simply responding to external flaws, they are co-architecting new realities through conscious intent. The reformer's consciousness isn't reacting to systems, it is writing them. Every reform, proposal, or cultural shift they initiate is an expression of their internal worldview, projected into form. The systems they improve mirror the internal structures they uphold. With a motivation direction of towards, the reformer is always moving into the potential of what could be better. Through the lens of conscious architecture, their idealism becomes design. Their focus doesn't just guide action, it configures new rules. Their belief in fairness, sustainability, or collective wellness becomes a structural force, not a sentiment. The future they work toward is not out there. It's assembled through their daily thoughts, decisions, and conversations. Their attention focus on others makes them relational designers. But this principle deepens that role. The way they see others shapes the systems those others live in. If they hold teams, clients, or institutions in a narrative of limitation, the systems they create will reinforce those ceilings. But if they hold others as evolving agents of transformation, their reforms will reflect flexibility, trust, and possibility. The reformer is not just correcting behaviors, they are installing new cultural codes. With an external frame of reference, they tend to absorb feedback as part of their design loop. But now that feedback becomes clay, not critique. Conscious architects take external input not as final truth, but as design material. They filter what aligns with their vision, what's emergent, and what's fear-based reactivity. The reformer becomes less responsive and more generative, shaping direction instead of adjusting to every signal. Their operational style of options already reflects a multi-path design mentality. The quantum shift is this: each option they consider exists as a latent structure until they choose. The moment they commit, mentally, emotionally, or publicly, the design begins solidifying. Their role is to explore widely but to choose from clarity. Not all options should be built. Their consciousness makes one blueprint real at the expense of others. That power must be wielded wisely. From their general viewpoint, they already think in terms of broad systems. But consciousness as architect invites more depth. Systems are not just processes, they are expressions of shared beliefs. Every reform is a mirror of assumptions. The reformer must regularly ask, what belief am I installing with this new structure? Do I truly believe in flexibility, trust, co-creation, or am I unconsciously reinforcing control, scarcity, or over-efficiency? Their blueprints reveal their internal software. Their work preference for proximity becomes not just collaborative, it becomes generative. Being close to others allows them to embed vision, coherence, and relational design into the system itself. But proximity also means their internal state matters. The reformer who is anxious, ungrounded, or unclear will imprint that into the team's rhythm. The reformer who is centered, values-aligned, and coherent becomes a living anchor of reform. Their consciousness writes code into the relational field. With associated emotional engagement, they care deeply about what they build. This emotional intensity becomes fuel for new architecture, but only if consciously directed. Passion that isn't integrated leaks into systems as instability or urgency. But when fully harnessed, their emotion shapes values into reality. A reformer in emotional alignment becomes a beacon. Others follow because the system feels right, not just functions well. As a matcher, they use what has worked before. But this principle asks them to go further, to recognize that tradition is not just inherited, it was designed by someone else's consciousness. They have permission and responsibility to redesign. They no longer just apply best practices, they originate new structural truths based on current needs and visionary insight. They stop being custodians and become authors. Their through-time orientation means they map long arcs of change. With this principle, they understand that time is a building site. Each step they take now lays a floor for future possibilities, or removes a beam that was blocking evolution. Their reforms aren't isolated. They are phases in an unfolding design that extends far beyond them. And with a primary drive of activity, they work by doing. But now, doing is not task. It is authorship. Every action is a design statement. Every initiative is a line in the system's future story. The reformer, when fully awakened to their role as architect, no longer waits for permission to improve systems. They become the conscious builder of new worlds. Quantum leaders, the reformer, Polarity creates the blueprint of experience. The reformer's natural style, oriented around improvement, inclusivity, and transformation, is energized by polarity, even if unconsciously. Every system they try to evolve carries opposing tensions: tradition versus innovation, control versus freedom, structure versus flow. The quantum principle that polarity creates experience affirms that reformers aren't meant to resolve opposites. They're meant to design through them. The reformer's most powerful reforms emerge when they recognize that tension is not dysfunction, it's creative fuel. With a motivation direction of towards, the reformer is propelled by a better future. Yet the polarity of progress is resistance. For every step forward, there is friction. Rather than pushing harder when resistance arises, the reformer learns to engage it consciously, to ask what the resistance reveals about timing, values, or readiness. Their reforms become stronger when they design with, not against, resistance. Progress and pause form the pulse of change. Their attention focus on others positions them to care deeply about group impact. But here lies a polarity: service versus self-stability. The reformer must not lose themselves in the needs of others. They are most effective when they oscillate between attuning outward and recentering inward. Their plans carry more coherence when they are informed by both empathy and boundary, giving and discerning in rhythm. With an external frame of reference, the reformer responds to outer input. Polarity appears here as feedback versus inner vision. Too much external referencing fragments the reform. Too little makes it tone deaf. Their growth lies in designing reforms that absorb feedback while still honoring the core purpose. It's not a choice between pleasing others or staying firm. It's a practice of integrating values with responsiveness. Their operational style of options reveals the polarity of divergence versus convergence. The reformer is excellent at exploring possibilities, but without synthesis, possibility becomes noise. They mature when they know when to generate and when to distill, when to brainstorm and when to commit. Reform is not an endless ideation loop. It's a polarity dance between potential and precision. The general viewpoint they bring allows them to think at system scale, but polarity here shows up in macro versus micro. Systemic thinking must ultimately land in real-world detail. A policy means nothing if it doesn't shift the daily experience. The reformer's power deepens when they toggle between large concepts and tangible impact, designing systems that are as grounded as they are visionary. With a work preference for proximity, they function best in collaborative environments. Polarity arises as influence versus listening. Too much direction can dominate the group field. Too much receptivity can dilute vision. The reformer leads best when they alternate, asserting when clarity is needed, receiving when emergence is required. They create psychological safety by holding both authority and humility. Their associated emotional engagement makes them bonded with the reforms they birth. Yet here, the polarity is between passion and detachment. If they cling too tightly, their reforms can become rigid. If they disconnect too far, they lose moral urgency. They evolve by holding reform like a sculptor holds clay, firm enough to shape it, soft enough to let it breathe. As a matcher, they seek continuity, grounding reform in existing frameworks. Polarity appears between familiarity and disruption. The reformer's genius blooms when they balance what works with what's necessary. They don't have to burn the system down, but they also can't leave it untouched. They become expert at layering innovation atop trusted foundations, evolving structures without severing roots. Their through-time orientation makes them patient designers. But polarity within time is subtle, long-term vision versus present need. Some changes require bold present action, others require gradual evolution. The reformer who honors timing as polarity, urgency and patience as equal forces, creates reforms that arrive exactly when the system is ready. Their primary drive, activity, pushes them to act. But now, that action is no longer reactive, it is relational. Every move they make happens within a field of tension. They stop fearing the polarity of reform and start using it as an architectural force, allowing tension to reveal what's most alive, what's ready, and what needs more holding before transformation can take root. Quantum leaders, the reformer. Quantum entanglement, the thread between all things. The reformer's natural style, improving systems through collaboration and responsiveness, takes on extraordinary depth when seen through the principle of quantum entanglement. Reform does not happen in isolation. It ripples through interdependent relationships, emotional fields, and cultural memory. The reformer is not just changing policies. They are shifting the subtle fabric of collective experience. Every improvement they initiate touches more than the task. It affects the system's identity, its relationships, and even its future responses. They are entangled with the very structures they seek to evolve. With a motivation direction of towards, the reformer envisions what could be better. But entanglement shows that every envisioned future already has emotional, cultural, and energetic links to the present. The systems they wish to improve are not static objects. They are fields of connection. A change in one corner of a team may alter motivation in another. A restructured process might ripple into morale, trust, or self-perception. Reformers lead most effectively when they act with awareness of what else their actions are touching. Their attention focus on others gives them intuitive access to the emotional tone of a system. Entanglement confirms that this is more than social intelligence. It is field awareness. The reformer often absorbs the unspoken resistance, hidden hope, or unmet need of a group. Their leadership evolves when they learn to sense what is collectively entangled, not just spoken or visible. They shift from acting on behalf of the system to with the system. With an external frame of reference, the reformer relies on feedback, but entanglement reframes feedback as a signal from a shared network. A comment from one person may reflect the stress of many. A small pushback may represent a deeply rooted historical pattern. The reformer's gift becomes their ability to read feedback through a relational lens, sensing who and what is connected behind the data. They become translators of collective emotion, not just analyzers of opinion. Their operational style of options allows them to explore multiple pathways forward. In an entangled system, each pathway activates different parts of the whole. One plan may subtly uplift trust, another might trigger old wounds. The reformer's real work is not choosing the best solution. It's selecting the one that most gently rewires the entanglement in the system. They build futures not just on efficiency, but on resonance. Through their general viewpoint, they see systems as interconnected wholes. Entanglement expands this to include unseen ties, cultural memory, emotional inheritance, organizational trauma, and collective longing. Reforms that ignore these elements often fail to stick. But the reformer who designs with respect for the unseen threads builds systems that feel true. When the blueprint acknowledges entanglement, the system begins to heal from the inside. Their work preference for proximity allows them to feel the field. In close contact with others, they unconsciously register patterns, energies, and dynamics. But entanglement also brings responsibility. Their mood, belief, and language ripple outward. If they are grounded, clear, and hopeful, others stabilize. If they're reactive or overwhelmed, the system mirrors that back. Their presence is never neutral. It's always transmitting. When conscious of this, the reformer's influence becomes quietly transformative. With associated emotional engagement, they pour themselves into the reform. Entanglement shows that this depth of investment becomes part of the reform's emotional DNA. Their love for equity, clarity, or sustainability gets woven into the system they're improving. But so does their fear or urgency. Emotional hygiene becomes essential. Before acting, they must clear, align, and center so that what they imprint on the system is clean and coherent. As a matcher, the reformer brings continuity to change. Entanglement reframes this. Each legacy practice they retain carries threads of connection, some stabilizing, some limiting. Their task is to sense which elements are anchoring the system in safety and which are binding it to outdated beliefs. They don't just update procedures, they gently disentangle past from future. Their through-time orientation supports the long view, but entanglement reveals that time is layered, not linear. Unprocessed past patterns may entangle with the present. A reform plan from 5 years ago might still shape how people react now. The reformer leads best when they acknowledge that time loops exist, and that successful reform requires clearing old entanglements, not just projecting new timelines. And their primary drive, activity, now becomes entangled leadership. They don't act alone, they act within the web. Every improvement they initiate is a signal to the system. This is what we now believe. This is who we are becoming. They become weavers of reform, conscious, gentle, and powerful in how they realign not just tasks and structures, but relationships, narratives, and unseen threads.